Hey guys, and welcome to the year 2016. 2015 has been a very big year for Webeo, but there's one thing for certain. With the exception of one Webeo, all the others have been entirely within the United States of America. Meanwhile, more than half of my subscribers and viewers are from other countries, for example, India, China, South Africa, France, UK, and even Brazil and Argentina. So I was wondering, why not take Webeo's proposals internationally? That's exactly what the year 2016 is going to be. To kick things off, you can see a globe. This is a very interesting Webeo in that this is a Transpacific vacuum tube going from Los Angeles to Hong Kong with a branch to Tokyo and the Koreas. Its top speed is 6,000 miles per hour, though it'll only be hit in the upper locations of Siberia, Alaska, and northwestern Yukon, Canada. The rest of the locations will have speeds ranging between 800 and 1,000 miles per hour. This will be primarily done to serve a wider range of cities and towns and populations in general, as well as to lower the cost in these areas. Alright, so let's begin. The entire route, by the way, is 8,072 miles from Los Angeles to Hong Kong, and that does not include the branch to Tokyo. The Los Angeles station is, you guessed it, in Los Angeles, right near the Union Station. It is a perfect location for people, especially from the Inland Empire, to get to, and they don't have to go as far to get to LAX as they would to go to here. So the line will start going at a speed of around 300 miles per hour. Keep in mind miles per hour, not kilometers per hour. I made it follow the existing Metrolink line from Los Angeles, paralleling Route 5 to Burbank and the San Fernando Valley into the Santa Clarita Valley. I don't plan a station here, but if you want a station in Santa Clarita, you can leave that in the comments section. After that, it will continue through the next valley as it goes through the Pacific Mountains for another couple, I think 60 miles, until it finally enters the Central Californian Plains. This is where speeds will increase a lot to 1,000 miles per hour. It'll pass Bakersfield, which I'm not sure there'll be a stop there, so I put a question mark. If you want to stop there, leave that in the comments. That goes with any place I left a question mark. It would be nice to serve this location, but it's not absolutely necessary. We'll follow the line. Next stop is Fresno. It's actually about 10 miles west of Fresno, but it would reduce the overall cost of the line rather than having it to go through Fresno, destroying a lot of properties. It'll go along Merced, Turlock, Modesto, Stockton, just actually southwest of Stockton. This is where things get interesting. There is a San Francisco branch. Yes, I forgot to say it in the beginning of this Webeo, but there is a San Francisco branch going towards Pinole, which is around 10 miles northeast of San Francisco. I didn't want to make it go all the way down because obviously costs would skyrocket trying to tunnel through the mountains near Berkeley and Oakland, and there are a lot of mountains to tunnel through in the rest of the project. So that's why I decided it's not worth it here. It's around the same distance as SFO anyways, so I don't see why it's necessary to bring the line all the way here. Not to mention that the speeds would have to decrease as well. What we did could also be what Elon Musk's proposed Hyperloop could be. It could go on a route similar to this. Now, this may not be the exact route, but what he proposed may go on a similar pathway to this. So if you want to get a sense of what the Hyperloop may look like, it's going to be something like this. However, I wanted to go further. Let's continue further north. Go international, right? So I'm thinking there may be a San Sacramento station, I'm not sure. It'll go next to the existing railway line and hit Interstate 5 near Red Bluff and Redding. And as it exits a state just south of Klamath Falls, Oregon, it'll parallel Route 97 now. Let me tell you why Route 97. The way Route 5 goes, Interstate 5, it goes through a lot of hills, not really mountains, but this area here is very hilly. So I decided it might just be better for the line to run east of the Cascade Mountains in Oregon. Though after a while they would have to tunnel through around 20 miles of this. This is a very expensive part of the project. And then it will have a stop at Portland, actually at Gresham. So it's around 10-15 miles east of Portland. And it enters Washington State still at the full 1,000 mile per hour speed. Now southern Washington's pretty interesting. There's some hills if you parallel Route 5, so I'll have to slow the speed down to 800 miles per hour so I can negotiate these. Otherwise, if I made it go 1,000 miles per hour and much closer to Mount Rainier, it would cost exponentially more money. So I decided it's not worth it. 800 miles per hour is fast enough. So it would continue, go southeast of Tacoma and parallel the existing Union Pacific and Amtrak railway, which parallels Interstate 5 up to Seattle. Seattle is a definite station, it's located right in the downtown. Seattle, based on this, would be an underground station. As it exits Seattle, and by the way, Seattle's downtown, so guess what? All these people, most people at least in the metro area, will find it much easier to get to the station. Not to mention businesses will love it. Same goes with Los Angeles, which also is right in the downtown. Just north of Seattle, the line will go around a median on Interstate 5. Not exactly though to maintain high speeds, but trying to follow major roads if possible. Like for a short stretch, it'll go on State Route 99 near Everett, which is where Boeing is headquartered. So that's a nice touch. And then it enters the plains of the northern area of the metropolitan area before it enters some mountains as it gets closer to Canada. Just south of Bellingham, it has to go through a big mountain. This is a 5-mile tunnel, so that may be expensive. But after that, you're finally in Canada. The first station is Vancouver, which is actually located in Pitt Meadows, British Columbia. It's around 15 miles east of the actual city proper of Vancouver, so it's not too bad of a commute to get here. It is farther than the airport, but then again, much of the urban sprawl is towards the east of Vancouver, not the west, which is where the airport is located. After Vancouver, this is one of the most expensive parts of the project. Tunneling through the northern Cascades. Speeds will decrease to 700 miles per hour now. I know it's still a lot. And it'll follow one of the valleys here. I don't know the name exactly of these valleys, but it's going to follow one of these valleys so it doesn't have to tunnel under that much mountain. And it'll continue doing that until it emerges around 200 miles north of the US border. And now from this point on, from right when it crosses Catch Creek, speeds will increase to 6,000 miles per hour. Now you may be wondering, it took me so much time to get from Los Angeles to Vancouver, like 9 minutes maybe. I'm going to finish the next part much faster, so let's go zoom. Start here. This is all tundra now. There's a little mountains, but if it has to go through mountain, it's not much, and much of the line is going to the interior of the actual coast. I made it go interior because obviously there are less mountains than having to go right through the Cascades through Alaska, like Juneau and Anchorage. Sorry to those people, they will not be getting this line. Instead, it'll be going through eastern British Columbia and very eastern Yukon Territory, almost even into the Northwest Territories, which is around 200 to 300 miles east of the actual coastline. At the full speed of 6,000 miles per hour, it enters Alaska, and it's safely north of Mount McKinley, Mount Denali, and Denali National Park, so there are no mountains in this area. It goes just south of Fairbanks, so there may be a stop there. I don't think it's really worth it, but if you want to stop there, leave that in the comments. Now, this is what you have all been waiting for. The Bering Strait crossing. This is one of the hardest parts of the project. Not the hardest, but I think one of the hardest. It's 46 miles across, yet it is frigid here. There's a high current, it's cold, and bringing supplies up here is nearly impossible. This is why this Webeo is titled a Vision 2100, as I don't envision this happening anytime soon. By the way, we went so far north. This is the first time I'm doing this in a Webeo. Change the orientation. So this is what the Bering Strait looks like when north is actually up. As you can see, very hard to build, but it's an interesting thing that has been proposed for many years. Why not combine the high-speed vacuum tube with the Bering Strait crossing? People are thinking a road. Who's going to drive up in Alaska? Who's going to drive up in extreme northeastern Siberia? It'll take forever. Even a train may be too slow. That's why the only solution, in my opinion, is a vacuum tunnel. It'll continue at a full speed into Siberia and will descend. Now it'll hit some mountains in the northeast, but it'll just tunnel under them. It's nowhere near as big as a once in the North America and southern China. We're not at southern China yet, but those are pretty big mountains. Just north of the Lesser Qinghang Range, it will enter northern China. In the Luoyang province, there will be a new branch that'll go towards Tokyo. We are going to do that later. Let's stay on the main line though, because this is what the main thing is. It will continue. Now this is very high speed, as the terrain isn't as bad as it was in USA, so you can maintain straight sections without much tunneling. Now the Beijing, quote unquote, Beijing station is actually in Tianjin. It's a city around 75 miles southeast of Beijing. However, there's a high-speed line connecting the two cities within 30 minutes. So I do think it's not viable to make it go all the way up to Beijing when Tianjin is already right on its path. And Tianjin's a big city too, around 12 million. So it'll be bringing more economy to this area as well. Speed will decrease to 2,000 miles per hour after Tianjin. To continue, it'll actually closely parallel the existing Shanghai to Beijing high-speed railway line. There will be a station in Jinan, at least there could be. Just south of Jinan, there will be a little mountain ridge, but that will have to be tunneled through. And I do know that the Chinese are very good at building very long infrastructure projects. For example, the Wuhan to Beijing and then Beijing to Guangzhou high-speed line, you could not imagine anything like that in the USA. It's basically kind of like my Appalachian high-speed rail video to the extreme, like honestly. That's 900 miles through all mountains, essentially all mountains. Some of the tunnels get from 10 to 20 miles along that line. Anyways, back to this. At 2,000 miles per hour, it will enter central China now. And the station of Shanghai is at Nanjing. Shanghai is too far east to make it viable to go all the way up like here. Not to mention the land is much flatter if you go from Nanjing to Hong Kong or Shanghai to Hong Kong. It's around 150 miles between the two cities, but then again, it's an hour train ride by high-speed train between the two cities, so it's not that bad if you think about it. Just south of Nanjing, it'll enter a valley, like just a set of valleys. It's not one particular valley, but it's a set of valleys. It will parallel G45 and S69 highways if you want a reference to where this line is actually going. And it will enter Guangdong province. First station is Shenzhen, Guangdong. Now Guangdong is a huge area. I believe it's either the highest population or second highest population province in China. I think either Beijing or Shanghai may be higher, but this is big. You have Shenzhen, Dongguan, and Guangzhou all in here. These are all within an hour and a half drive to Shenzhen. So you don't have to go all the way down to Hong Kong basically. And I know from my father who has went on business trips to China, surprisingly, that getting from Hong Kong to mainland China is much harder than you think. It's also coincidentally the location of Shenzhen North Station. So that's going to be a very easy transfer, no building required. Under this area, the line will also likely be underground, the entire city. There may be some elevated portions, but I don't foresee that happening. It will stay underground as it goes through under Shenzhen Central CBD and enters Hong Kong Island. Now this will only be at 300 miles per hour, slowing down until it finally ends at Hong Kong West Kowloon Terminus. This is a distance of 8,067 miles from Los Angeles. That is my longest Webeo by the length. And guess what? It is not done. We still have this to go with 8 new stations. So on the western branch of the Tokyo extension, there'll be a station at Shenyang. It's a station in it's a city in northeastern China, around 5 million people, so I think that will be a good opportunity. Now, this is where things get interesting. Just before it enters North Korea, there's some mountains they'll have to be tunneled through. I may actually just connect these two. For example, I may connect these two further north here, so I only have to build one tunnel rather than two closely parallel ones. So yeah, that may be changed. Now this is where it gets interesting. The line will have to be built in North Korea, and I plan to stop at Pyongyang. The problem is North Korea is very isolated, as you may probably know. The government does not allow any outside information. So if that's the case, the line may have to be built over the water. Maybe from Shandong, the line may have to go something like this if North Korea cannot agree. I think they should agree. I don't know why they want to be isolated, but okay. If that doesn't work, something like that can be done. So it's around the same length, but you would have to tunnel under the Yellow Sea, and that's not that easy. At least it's relatively shallow. But it will enter South Korea, and this is relatively flat until Seoul Incheon. Just south of there, it will go through the valleys of the southern metro area. And there are a couple mountains here and there, but then after a while, just south of Anseong, you will enter a long chain of mountains. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is probably the most expensive part of the project. But don't worry, it's going to be worth it. There's no valleys to follow at such a high speed. Daegu may be another station. It's just to serve southern South Korea. I just put it there because it's a city that happens to be on the line. But it's just a southern South Korea station. Just south of Ulsan, it will go under the 250-mile long link between South Korea and Japan under the Sea of Japan. There will be a station probably at Hiroshima, Asakita. And after here, through Japan, it will closely follow the coastline, as the mountains are actually more inland here in contrast to Canada, in which it was the opposite case. It'll follow the existing Shinkansen routes pretty well, actually. Next station is Osaka Kyoto, which is located around halfway between Osaka and Kyoto. Osaka is the second biggest city in Japan. We continue through some mountains. I think there's a 10 to 15 mile long mountain here. So there'll be a tunnel. It will enter Nagoya and Osaka, by the way, too. I'm not sure how they'll be done. My guess is elevated if possible, otherwise underground. Like, for example, central Nagoya will be in a tunnel. Obviously, you don't want to destroy the buildings that are being benefited by this, because there'd be nobody to benefit. It will go just northeast of Toyota. Yes, Toyota. It's actually where Toyota's headquarters are located. We went past Boeing, we're going past Toyota as well. However, now here I'm not sure about this exact line. Not sure whether it's worth it to tunnel through all these mountains or take a more conservative approach and make the line go like this. You know what, I'll increase the weight of the line. But I'm not sure if it should go like that or go like this, because this would be a lot cheaper, but then again I was aiming at high speeds. So it's your call, and this is a Vision 2100, so people's needs may drastically change, so either of those two pathways may work. It will follow the southern Japanese coast for around 120 more miles before it enters the Tokyo area and a stop underground right under Tokyo Station, which is right in the central part of the city. Connections to Shinkansen both north and south, so it's a nice place to end the line. There you go. That's the line from Los Angeles to Hong Kong with a branch to Tokyo. Los Angeles to Hong Kong will take around 2.5 hours. That's not a lot of time. Los Angeles to San Francisco is 20 minutes. Hong Kong to Beijing will be around 30 minutes. Beijing to Tokyo will be around 40 minutes. So it's considerably faster than air travel. Now before we end this Webeo, I want to address something, and this is one of the main points of this. Is this feasible, or do you think a better solution to this proposal is just to implement supersonic aircraft? Honestly, had supersonic aircraft been a thing, all these vacuum tube proposals would have not existed. This is just in case supersonic travel does not take off within the next 100 years, which may be possible considering aeroplanes have flown at around 500 miles per hour for the last 60 years. So unless if supersonic air travel takes off, proposals like this may have to be done. And supersonic air travel will be much cheaper in the long run, but a lot more expensive in the short run, as you have to develop the planes all at once. Here you could build section of the lines, for example, Los Angeles to San Francisco or Beijing to both Tokyo and Hong Kong, but that you have to do it all at once. But at the same time, that can still provide very fast transportation. So it's interesting to see all the possibilities involved within transportation. So maybe these vacuum tubes may not show up at all. Maybe flying may take over even these long routes. We will see. But there's no doubt about it. This is an expensive project and it deserves a lot of attention if it wants to ever be built. I think if it is built, the Asia portion and the North America portion will be built pretty early, but this stretch right here through the polar regions, that will take a long time. It will require significant advancements in not only vacuum tube engineering, but also just construction engineering. How are you supposed to construct something in the Bering Strait? How are you supposed to construct something in Alaska or eastern Siberia? And believe it or not, it does get reasonably warm here in the summer, so temperature fluctuates a lot. How are you supposed to construct under those harsh conditions? How are you supposed to get all the materials up here? There are lots of things involved, but if it can be done, this would be epic. It would finally connect the USA with Asia in a short amount of time, thus connecting the Silicon Valleys of California with the Silicon Valleys of China. There you go. Thank you for watching.